Hello, this is lesson 3.6 and it's adding and subtracting unlike fractions. So before you begin, please be sure that you have some different colors, and when you're ready to continue, press play. Oh, and don't forget to divide your paper into 4 equal sections. Please pause now. Okay, so on the top left side we have our steps for adding or subtracting unlike fractions, and the first step is you're going to find the LCD. And then step 2 says change the numerators. Step 3 is add or subtract the numerators. Step 4, with a different color, you're going to write keep the denominator. And step 5, simplify if possible. So pause the video to copy this down, and when you're ready to continue, press play. Please pause now. So let's take a look at the upper right side of your notes, and I want you to copy down these problems and we're going to work through them. Again, you are going to need a different color to show how we're changing them. So let's go ahead and start on number 1. Write down the problem 1/6 plus 3/4. And what we're going to do here is we have to find a common denominator. So usually I tell kids to take the greater number, the greater denominator, and do multiples of that number until 4 goes into it. So if you're looking at 6, I want you to write this down. The multiples of 6 are 6, 12, 18, etc. Okay, but you can actually stop when you get to 12 because 4 goes into it. So I'm just going to put a little arrow here. This is going to be our common denominator. So underneath this problem, I want you to write here with your different color, you have a new denominator, 12 and 12. Okay, now we're going to find our new numerators. So the way you do that is you look at 6 and you see, okay, 6 times what is going to give you 12? And so that is times 2. So you're going to have 6 times 2. You're going to write that next to the fraction, and then you have to do the same thing at the top. 1 times 2. So then 1 times 2, that's going to be your new numerator. It's going to be 2 12ths. Okay? So now let's look at the second fraction. This 4, we want to make it a 12. So to make the 4 12, we multiply it times 3. So we're going to write times 3 here, and you have to do it to the top number as well. Whatever you do to the denominator, you have to do to the numerator. So then 3 times 3 is going to be our new numerator, and that's 9. So it's 9 12ths. Now when you have the same denominator, you can add. So to add fractions, remember, you're going to go ahead and you keep the denominator. So that's going to stay at 12. So we're going to write 12 on the bottom, and then we add the numerators together. We get 11, and then it's simplified, so this is our answer. Let's take a look at number 2. Okay, problem 2, we have mixed numbers. Now I always tell kids to make sure to make them improper because it's just easier, especially when you're dealing with positive and negative fractions, to make them both improper. So for the first fraction, we have 3 times 5 plus 3, and that's going to be 18 over 5. And then for the next fraction, it's 6 times 4 plus 5, so that's going to be 29 over 6. So then you write that with a negative sign because it was a negative mixed number, and now you find a common denominator. 5 and 6 both go into 30. So let's write 30 underneath. Okay, so that's going to be our common denominator, and now we have to change the numerators. So you look at this 5, to make it into a 30, you times by 6. So let's write times 6 here. And then you have to do the same thing to the numerator. 5 times 6 is 30, and 18 times 6 is 108. Oops, let me use regular. Okay. And now you do the same thing to the second fraction. Here, 6 times 5 is 30, so put times 5. And then you do negative 29 times 5, and that's going to be negative 145. And now we're going to add them. Now that you have the same denominators, remember you're going to have the same numbers on the bottom. So then the 30 is going to stay 30. And then you just use your adding rules. So 108 plus a negative 145, you're going to subtract them from each other. You get 37, but the greater absolute value is negative 145, so it's going to be a negative 37. And I can't simplify, so you can actually leave it improper, and that would be your final answer. Okay, so now we're going to try these two on the lower left side of your notes. And for number 3, I want you to write down 3/4 minus 8/9. So go ahead and write that down. And these are subtracting problems here. So we're still going to have to find a common denominator. Looking at 4 and 9, they're both going to go into 36. And remember, I take that bigger denominator and I do multiples of that number until 4 goes into it. So this would be 9, 18, 27, 36. So that's the first number 4 will go into. So let's make 36 our common denominator. So then for the first fraction, to make 4 36, we multiply it by 9. So we do times 9. And then you have to do it to the top. So that's going to be 27. 27 over 36. And then on the second fraction, you have a 9 and you want to make it a 36. So you times by 4. 9 times 4 is 36, but you do it also to the top. 8 times 4. And so now your numerator is 32, and it's 32 over 36. And now we can subtract. But remember, when we subtract, I like to do keep, change, change. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. It's going to be 27 plus negative 32. Okay, so I'll just write that on the side here. We did keep, change, change. Okay, and then you're going to subtract here because they're different signs. And it's going to be 5, but it's negative because the greater absolute value is negative. And then we keep our denominator, 36. And this is our final answer. Now let's do number 4. So on number 4, I want you to write down 5 1/3 minus negative 4 4/9. And a lot of times when I see that minus negative, I automatically change it so that it's a plus sign. So we'll be changing them to pluses, okay? And let's make them, both of these mixed numbers, improper fractions. So then we'll have 16 over 3 plus 4/9. Okay, now we have to find a common denominator. So you look at the bigger denominator, that's 9, and 3 goes into 9, so that's going to be our common denominator. Okay, so we're going to write 9 at the bottom for each fraction, and then for the first fraction, the denominator is 3, so we have to times it by 3 to make it a 9, and you do the same thing to the numerator. 3 times 16 is going to be 48. And on the second fraction, notice how it's already a 9. So since it's already a 9, we're just going to keep the numerator 41 over 9. And now we can use our adding rules. So here we have the same denominator, so we're going to keep the denominator. Okay, and then 48 plus 41, that's going to be 89. And then you can leave it an improper fraction. Now remember, the only time I say to make it a mixed number is if we were answering a word problem. If it's a word problem, then you definitely want to make it a mixed number. So that's it. That's all for your notes. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.